Okay, the new hair trends are here, and I know you're excited. But let me tell you this, they absolutely can make you look older, unless you know what I'm about to share with you in this video. Now, every year, new hair trends come out, and you get really excited about trying them, or maybe you just want to learn what they are, or maybe you want to just make sure that you're up to date or current in your fashion. And that all makes sense. But there are some things that you need to know, actually 5 things to be exact, to make sure that they don't actually make you look older, because they absolutely can. And even more than just looking older, they may also just make you feel kind of uncomfortable, and you might not know why that is, why it is that, you know, you've worn this before, or you love this shape. Why doesn't it work for you? Well, I'm going to share exactly why it might not be working for you, and some pretty easy fixes to those concerns. So, yeah, don't make these mistakes. Let's dive into 5 things that you need to know before you try a new hair trend. Okay, now before we dive into the actual concerns, things you need to be aware of, you first need to understand really kind of where trends actually come from. Because I think a lot of people kind of miss that trends are just basically remakes of styles that we've already seen, or trends that were popular from decades ago. So maybe you're familiar with the old shag haircut from the 70s. And then last year you probably saw the wolf cut that was very popular, which was basically just a remake of the shag slightly modified. Or maybe you remember the 80s with the mullet. This year we're moving into something they're going to call the Mixie, which is essentially a mullet and a pixie mixed. But if we're honest, let's just be straight and call that a modified mullet. Or maybe you've heard of the butterfly cut, which I can't even begin to tell you how many renditions of the butterfly cut have happened in the 90s, 80s, 70s, 60s, etc. So all of these styles are styles that you may have seen before, and it's likely one of the things that will draw you to one of them in particular. Many times I find that people gravitate towards new trends that are very similar to trends that they loved while they were growing up or at a certain time years ago in their life. Now, the crazy thing is, this love or this draw could be the exact reason that if you do this style today, will actually make you look older, and you just don't know why. That is where the 5 things that I'm going to share with you today are going to come into play, so that you can actually not only potentially wear that new trend, but also rock it, look amazing in it, and most importantly, as I always say, feel absolutely incredible wearing it. Okay, the first thing you need to know is what I call dress the trend. Now, let's imagine that you're looking at the Mixie right now and you love this style. And some of you are probably thinking, why would you love a mullet? Hey, I'm not here to judge. I'm just here to say that it is an option, and you might love it, and there's nothing wrong with that. But if you wore a mullet in the 80s, and now you're looking at this Moxie saying, wow, it's finally back. I loved that style on myself. Let's dive back in. And then you do it and you're confused about why it doesn't work. It's most likely likely that you were 10 or 20 years younger, and you're just in a different place in your life and in your career and all of the things. And a large part of what makes trends, especially trendy cuts, work well is not just the cut, but the overall look. It's the whole thing put together. So if you look back to where the way you dressed back then that all kind of pulled that style together with that mullet, then you look at yourself today and say, well, I'm in a corporate position and I need to dress a certain way for my career or just my time in my life. This is the way I feel most confident. If that doesn't make sense, speak the same design language, if you will, that made sense for this particular trend that you're moving into, then it's not going to make sense overall. And what you'll end up looking like is it'll look like this style is wearing you and you're not wearing the style. That's where things kind of go off the rails, and all of a sudden you start feeling a little bit less confident, and then it's all kind of downhill. So what do you do instead? It's pretty simple, actually. You look at the style that you loved in the past that's drawing you to this new trend, and you think, what did that style say? What did my clothes say at the time? What did my overall look say? And does my overall look without this trend today say that same thing? Because the trend still does. Remember, it's a remake of an older style. So that new trend many times speaks the same language that it did 10, 20, 30 years ago. The question is, does your outfit speak the same language? And if it does, fantastic, rock that trend. However, if it doesn't, how can you make what you're doing today with your clothing speak the same design language as this hair trend does? Does that make sense? Okay, now let's move on to number 2. Oh, and if you're new to the channel, first of all, thanks for hanging out. Thanks for checking out the video. My name is Justin Hickox. I've been doing hair since 1995, and I prefer to take you on adventures while I teach about hair. That's why you see me out here and not in a salon. And if you're confused as why you would listen to some random guy out in the woods talk about hair, well, I actually do get those questions quite often, and I'll just tell you, you probably shouldn't listen to me if that concerns you, because, well, we all know that everything I've learned over the past quarter century of doing hair, I forget it the minute I leave the salon. So there's that. Okay, the second thing is what I call body-hair connection. Now, as we age, let's just all be on the same page here and admit that more often than not, our body shape is going to change in some way, shape, or form. Like, take me, for instance. I used to be 220 pounds and 6'3", looked like a Greek god. Today I'm 5'7", 165 pounds, and look more like Greek pita bread. No, but to be all in fairness, we do have a tendency to either put on a little bit weight as we age, or in some cases even lose weight as we age. But regardless, we need to make sure that the style that we're moving towards, that maybe we did love on ourselves before, does work with our newer body shape. So for instance, one style that you're going to see a lot of is the boy cut. It's just a very short cut. Now let's imagine that 10 years ago you had this style and you absolutely loved it. And now that very short cut doesn't quite make as much sense with the body frame. Now I've done a video that talks a little bit about kind of how body shape plays into our overall hairstyle. And you can go ahead and check that out right there if you want. But at the end of the day, it may be a situation where that short haircut just doesn't quite feel right on a little bit larger of a frame. Or maybe you've lost a lot of weight and now you're looking at this longer haircut and it just overpowers your now smaller frame. The point of all of this is to pay attention to what your body frame is doing now and how that plays into the new trend that you want to move into. Now, number 3 is what I call face the trend. So, as I think we all know, many times as we age, our body frame isn't the only thing that might see some changes. It's really our face shape that I feel like has one of the larger changes that happen. For many of us, if we gain weight or lose weight, we see it right here. Or we start to see some sagging happening, which really starts to bring our face down. So when we're thinking about moving into a new trend, we need to pay attention to the way that trend functions today versus how it would have functioned 10 or 20 years ago when our face was maybe a little bit different. Here's the best part about all this. Much like my last point, for this one, you absolutely can modify where you leave volume in this new trend that you want to move towards to modify your face. Therefore, add lift to areas where you might want to add lift, or take weight out of areas where you might want to take weight out of, or even maybe add some fullness to areas where you want to add some weight to. And so paying attention to what your face shape is now and how this new trend is going to work best for your face shape and having it cut accordingly is going to play a huge role in this new trend actually making you look more youthful instead of making you look older. Oh, and by the way, this is the perfect time to say, if you're getting some value out of this content or you've been here for a while, do me a huge favor, hit that subscribe button. At the end of the day, it just helps me out a lot. So I appreciate it. It's totally free to you. Thanks. And number 4 is what I like to refer to as texture the trend. Okay, what this means is as we age, one of the largest changes overall that happens when it comes to our hair is our texture. Our texture will change for a multitude of different reasons. And this can be due to what we're doing in regards to color or how we're styling the hair or hormonal changes, or if we're going gray and we're covering that up, how long we've been covering, all of the things. Okay? There's so many different reasons that our hair texture will change. So one of the things we want to pay attention to when we're looking at new trends is how our new texture will actually affect achieving this trend. Now, while this may have worked for us in the past, it may not work for our new texture now, or it may still work for our new texture. However, to achieve that look, it may require more day-to-day maintenance in terms of styling. Now, these are just things that you want to pay attention to so that you don't find yourself looking at everything else saying, well, my clothes match, right? My face shape will work, my body frame works, everything is golden. Let's rock this haircut because I loved it and I love this new take on it. And then get into it and realize that your hair texture doesn't really match and you don't have the time to achieve this look now to get your hair texture to actually make sense. Now it's all just a loss. So pay attention to the texture. Texture the trend. That is such a dumb name for that. Whatever, that's beside the point. Number 5. Okay, the last, and I would argue the most important thing I'm going to share with you today is what I call the feeling effect. This is absolutely crucial to take into consideration when you're thinking about a new trend, or really any modification or larger change to your hair in general. The question you have to ask yourself is, how does this make you feel? Who are you doing this change for? Are you making this change for yourself, or are you making this change for maybe a family member that said, remember when you had that style? Man, that looked good. You should do that again. But the most important thing you can do is make sure that this trend makes you feel good. Now, that means that even if other people don't like it, if you feel good, you're going to feel confident and you're going to rock it. Now, the reason that this is so vital, we have to remember that trends typically are a little bit on the outliers in terms of the different styles. They're a little bit more on the edge than something hyper conservative. So if you're going to move into something that's a very trendy shape, you have to recognize that if you don't feel good in it, it's not going to look good on you. You have to feel confident in what you're wearing. It's just as I said before, if you don't wear that trend will absolutely wear you. I know we all know somebody that wears some outlandishly ridiculous hairstyle and maybe hair color, and somehow it just makes sense. And you look at them and go, I could never do that, but man, you're killing it. You look incredible in that. It's because they're wearing that trend or that style. It's not wearing them. And to the flip side of that, I know that we also have all seen somebody that did something that is a cool style that didn't just quite make sense on them for some reason. And more often than not, the things that I explained today are exactly why. All of those things add up. And then you take this 5th one into consideration, and boom, doesn't quite make sense on them. And that is why. I hope all that makes sense, because it makes sense to me. But hey, I hope that this helped you kind of understand exactly what you need to pay attention to when you're moving into one of these trends. Do you want me to make a video that actually walks you through all of the trends coming up in the next year? Is that important to you? Honestly, don't know. So let me know. Otherwise, hey, I appreciate you hanging out. Oh, and by the way, if you're new to the channel, do not hesitate. Or if you're old to the channel, if you're a veteran of the channel and you have not subscribed yet, come on, we need to do that now, right? It's about time. I feel like do we not have this? This isn't here? We need to hit the button, just right now, hit the button. Okay, all right, now I'm going to enjoy a mountain that you probably can't even see really back there in this shot, but there's a mountain right there, and it's a rad view, so it doesn't suck. I'm gonna enjoy that. You, go watch this. You have a fantastic afternoon. I will see you next Tuesday. Take care now. Bye. Yeah, that doesn't suck. There's 2 mountains, actually. Actually, no, there's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 you can't see because of trees, but my Lord, they are kind of amazing.